Welcome to Brand Ambassador and Promotional Industry Update number 4. My name is Al Schuster. I am the president and owner of Polaris Brand Promotions. We are a nationwide experiential marketing agency serving primarily the alcoholic beverage industry. We also do trade shows, music festivals, anywhere where clients want to promote their products and services right to their brand. So I am thrilled to introduce our panelists for this evening. First, we have Sugey Cruz, actress and president of the Tommy Foundation. Michelle Nicole McNabb, owner of Emenee Marketing Events, if I got that right. Taylor Schear, CEO of Schear Media. And Sara Howanski of White Label Consulting. So, as we always say, the purpose of these is to inform and educate the brand ambassador community about what's going on with COVID-19 in terms of how companies are coping with it, and hopefully provide you with some information and guidance to help you through these difficult times. So what I'd like to do now is allow each of our panelists to introduce themselves, tell you a little bit about their companies and how they've been impacted. So Sugey, let's start with you first.
Well, I'm Sugey Cruz, and I actually just started working with you guys a little bit, so I just helped out with something, and I'm not sure how much I'm supposed to say about any of that, so I will leave that there. But I'm an actress, as you mentioned, and a producer, so we've been impacted specifically in that we have no work for the most part, unless you can do voiceover work or you can do video at home. So you have to, there's all sorts of like rules and stuff that they're sending us now so that you know how to set everything up so that it's the kinds of videos that they want and whatnot. But by and large, most of the industry has kind of been put on a standstill until things recover. And even once things recover, it's going to, we're not sure what that's going to look like since there will be a lot of different rules in place once that does happen, until obviously it progresses through the phases. As far as other things that I do, I'm the president of a nonprofit for autism called the Tommy Foundation, which I co-founded a lot of years ago. And I'm also the parent of an autistic child. So basically we had to cancel our main fundraiser because normally we have over 1,000 people that attend that event because we service all of Lancaster County. And that would be the first event in 13 years that we do not have. And basically a lot of our families are really struggling right now because on top of just trying to figure out the ones that do work, we have nurses, we have people who are teachers, we have people who are essential employees in other ways, who are still working full-time jobs while also trying to manage all the childcare aspects. And then there's also no real help out there for them. So it's been challenging, to say the least. But we're hoping to figure out some ways that we can all work together.
All right. Thanks, Sugey. And Michelle McNabb, thanks for joining us. Tell us about yourself.
Yeah, hello. I'm Michelle Nicole McNabb, and I own Emenee Marketing and Events. So Emenee stands for MNE, for Marketing and Events, Michelle Nicole Enterprises. And really, my main focus is working with the companies that are investing into events, so using events as a platform, whether it be for trade shows, it could be lunch and learns, it could be a combination, but really they are using events as a way to leverage their brand, connect with their audience, and how are we going to integrate their marketing plan using events. So that's the gist of it. My background being logistical event planning, so a lot of people think event planner and putting on the event themselves, and that's definitely a component, but a lot of times I'm actually partnering with those organizations or companies like Al to put on the event, but not to think about all sponsors and exhibitors. What are they doing before the event, during the event, and after the event? So I'm coming in more as a support to make sure that the campaigns themselves are successful. I work mostly in the B2B space, B2B sector, and obviously with COVID and everything going on, how we've been affected is that most of our events have been postponed a full year. and or turning more into a virtual and or hybrid. So what a lot of people and events that we were attending would make turn it into a virtual event or a hybrid event, and then just postponing for that next year. And also a lot of re-engagement campaigns. And so revisiting past events and or recent events, people that we've connected with, and again, making sure that once we've attended the event, we make sure that we've extended that shelf life of the experience and make sure that we're re-engaging and having those relationships, and we're able to do that through digital tactics, you know, staying online, connecting with them both on LinkedIn, and then really strengthening those relationships. Even though the in-person has been postponed, we're still able to have that high touch human to human connection, has been a big factor. And then they're waiting to make any further decisions as far as new events, versus just making sure that any events that have already been postponed and or past events are really being leveraged, rather than making new commitments to new events until we see which direction that they're going. And thirdly, just being that the size of the event and the locations. International events where people come here to see, and larger events, and we're seeing it even for the 2021 year that they are considering smaller events but in multiple locations or multiple cities, and not so much the international and travel at the current moment. So those are some of the ways that we've directly been impacted and the timelines, but still able to make sure that we're engaging with our audience. And, you know, as far as my clients go, and even though events are on pause, doesn't mean that we need to stop the connection completely.
All right. Thanks, Michelle. Taylor Schear, tell us a little bit about yourself and your company.
Hi, yeah, so I own Schear Media. We do overall marketing. We work with different brands on the social front, content, but our focus is primarily within the influencer marketing space. We represent about 3,000 influencers all across the world, mainly US-based, all different industries. So as a whole, as a company, we've seen a lot of changes just with COVID. We used to do events as well for some of our brands. Some of the clients that are more restaurant based, of course, we've had to shift, seeing as they haven't been open, or have only been doing takeout. But really in the influencer space, it's thankfully for us and for them have actually been a very good thing. A lot of brands are shifting to being way more digital and using influencers quite a bit more. But it's really been a little bit of a change, just because a lot of these influencers are used to having photographers and being able to go out and shoot. And, you know, sometimes like instead of using 5 models and a photographer, now brands are adapting to using a single influencer who takes their photos at home and knows how to use Photoshop and Lightroom and all of these different things. So it's been good that, we've been able to see that shift and learn that we can do things remotely, and it doesn't always have to be a full-fledged production. And we've been able to give a lot of more influencers work. We've paid out about 100 influencers in the last 2 days even. So it's been good in that way. But rates are definitely going down for sure. We're seeing just overall the industries, even the ones that are successful, are still hurting even a little bit with everything. So they're just currently adapting to the different scopes. We're adapting to all the guidelines, how people can create campaigns at home versus out, and, shifting business to adapt with that. So it's been a learning curve for sure, but it's definitely something that we can use for the positive.
All right. Thanks, Tara. And next up, Sara Howanski. Sara, tell us about yourself and your company.
Hi, I'm Sara Howanski. So I own White Label Consulting. My consulting firm is a smaller firm. It's basically focused on business coaching and consulting different elite performers and business owners. Originally, we were more social media marketing based company and really focused on just branding, sales, and social media marketing. With the COVID-19, we've done a really huge pivot actually, and basically been focusing mostly on business coaching and consulting. So it's interesting because I saw my clientele get cut in half in maybe a day, because the majority of my clients were commercial real estate. So they obviously are really hurting with all the people not being able to pay their rent, and then they're not allowed to kick anyone out, so they can't even get new tenants to replace it. It was a very, it was like a day I lost half my clientele, and then a lot of my clientele is restaurant owners too. So it was interesting because for a couple of weeks I was very confused, like what should I do? Should I be prospecting people? And then I started getting more into the consulting realm and found that people with all this free time at home really love the development side and the consulting side. So I've been focusing on that, and honestly, I'm back up to where I originally was, and it's been great. So it's weird. It's almost like through COVID, it's made me realize I actually love the consulting side more than the other side I was doing. So in a weird way, it's kind of blessed my company, and this is where I want to focus on. So I'll be focusing on webinars, training programs, and training people how to develop their business mind to the next level versus just doing the social media, which the social media is so important, but I'm more of an asset in the development part. So it has been interesting, but it's actually helped my business, I think, more than harmed it long term.
All right, good to hear. Next up, we're going to have some individual questions for each of our panelists, and then we're going to kind of do a little round table where we have a couple questions for everyone. If you're following along on Zoom, feel free to toss your questions in the chat, and if not, you can find through the Facebook link for the event a link over to join us and attendee in Zoom. So first up, Sugey. Got to show a little picture to everyone because you are the face behind the mask behind our in-store tasting safety solutions. So thank you very much. I know you and our good friend Star Bunner did a great job with this, and we've gotten some positive feedback from different people in the industry. So first up, I want to ask you first a couple questions. I want to ask you first. You know, I have heard nothing but bad things about what's been happening to people in the event industry, specifically like actors, actresses, and especially all of the behind the scenes help. The ones behind the camera that make everything happen, how they've been so negatively impacted by what's going on. I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about what you've heard and experienced, not only for yourself as an actress and your fellow actors and actresses, but also from other people, in the film and entertainment industry.
I would say it's actually probably to an extent impacted more crew than it probably has. I think Taylor kind of alluded to this. Far as actors go, there are other avenues kind of that we can take a little bit. So we've been able to evolve in certain respects. So there is voiceover work. There is changing up a little bit. There's more things that you can do from home, for example. So it's not the best, but it's not terrible. In my case anyway, I also do a lot of producing. So I've actually been doing sort of the prep work. So that's actually one of the things. There's a lot of really great groups out there. And one of the ones that I've gotten hooked up with is something called Actors Connection, which is out of New York and LA. And they go through and they'll explain, there's actually free classes that they do kind of like this. One of which, the first one that I did was with 500 people on a Zoom call. Only one person allowed to talk and everybody else is muted because otherwise you're going to have that go crazy. But in essence, they kind of broke down like these are kind of the steps that you should be taking right now. You should be making sure that your websites are up to date, your social media is up to date. So it's really like the cleanup so that you can kind of, once things move up again, everything's kind of ready to go. And then they also obviously have classes so that you can connect directly with casting directors that might be looking through things. So that's actually a really good asset out there. But as far as our crew, a lot of them are really hurting because obviously if there's no set to be on, they are not getting any work. So you're obviously not going to have lighting or sound or anything, and especially if you're doing all those things at home and your agent, like it's all well and good that my agent tells me to get a lighting kit and to get sound kit and all that kind of stuff and make sure that I have a microphone and whatever, but that's work that somebody else would have had that they don't have right now. So I'd say that definitely crew is who's been impacted the most, and that we're hoping, I mean, there's all sorts of different articles. So like LA looks like it's going to be super impacted in a way because like their governor is saying that they're not going to open back up until there's, you know, a vaccine, and, you know, so that's going to be a while before you can have any kinds of activity that way. So here, hopefully, we're going to keep moving and progressing to that, you know, yellow and green phase a little bit quicker. So hopefully things will be able to open back up a little bit sooner so that some crew members can actually get back on sets. But even then, I feel like a lot of those are going to look a lot different. So, you know, we are going to have to put some safety measures obviously in place, and there's going to be a lot of education that all of us need to do to make sure that things are implemented properly.
All right, thanks. And as for your work with the Tommy Foundation, which is wonderful, by the way, you know, you had mentioned earlier about, you know, losing one of your biggest fundraisers. I know the biggest thing for charities is a lot of their big fundraising events, whether it be, you know, ticketed private events or big, you know, public events like big runs or walks or races. So tell us a little bit, you know, from that perspective on, you know, what you're doing and how you're pivoting right now.
Yeah, our event is just, the reason it's such a big bummer is that it's not just a walk. We do a walk and festival and actually a carnival. So it's really the one day out of the year. Like we've had families that let their kids know they have autism after they've attended one or two events. And then like, they're like, hey, you know that event that you go to every year? It's for people like you, you know? So like it's really like a family thing. So it's not just losing us, like the financial aspect of it. It's also a lot of people losing what we call our family reunion. So that's not something that you can easily recreate. What we have been trying to do is we do have a private Facebook group, which we've had for several years, but we've just been more up to date with it and making sure that we're providing things that families can utilize more readily, that they can go on that space and be able to vent when they need to vent, that information that we have about what they can do to make sure that the therapies and the things that they need for their kids are actually there, that they can talk to other parents, that they can talk to us, and we can provide them with some feedback. So that would be like the main thing that we've been able to do for now. We are talking about doing like a Zoom catch-up and having it be like a wine hour. So like everybody kind of brings their own and we can kind of chat and like, you know, just catch up that way and vent most likely, more so than anything else. But it's definitely challenging, and we're just trying to figure out the best way to kind of accommodate everybody's individual needs, because that's the biggest issue, is that no one person's needs are exactly the same.
All right, thanks, Sugey. Michelle, now I know we had a really long conversation about all the work you do for trade shows and conventions and things like that. And I know that, you know, brand ambassador and promo work, you know, ranges everything from little 2 to 3 hour alcohol demos like we do to like week-long trade show booth staffing where brand ambassadors usually, or some of them do, especially out in the Las Vegas market, use this as their full-time job. There's so many conventions, they just go from show to show to show, and that's just their full-time job. Tell me a little bit about, you know, how the trade show and convention industry is, you know, adapting right now, and you know, how they've been pivoting.
Yeah, so like Sara said, in a way, I actually found different clarity as to what my clientele needs, because through all this, I really kind of asked myself, again, why are people using events? And if events are on hold, then what can we be doing? And that's where I'm looking to position myself with my phone calls with my clients. And because those were the type of phone calls that I was getting like through all this, and when different states were shutting down, or even if one state is run one way. And then, for instance, I have a client who does bridal shows, and she's in probably 7 different states here on the East Coast. It's not like California where it's like the whole coast, right? Every state here on the East Coast has so many different regulations and what they can do. And so there's just a lot of pivoting, you know, and that is a bridal show, which is B2C, you know, talking to families, and it's very emotional and all the different states. So pushing back, like, well, what do we do? And that's a lot different than, let's say, a show that a client was going to for 600 companies were going to be there selling to different companies, very B2B, where whether they have their companies or not, right? So not even the event itself, but just the companies themselves, it's all over the map. And I've kind of been using the analogy.
Nope. It looks like we lost Michelle there. Hopefully she'll, hold on, she's reconnected now.
Am I here?
Yep, you're there.
Okay, right? So the domino effect falls down where they call it like the popsicle stick effect, where things at first were just, I don't know if you guys know the popsicle stick effect, where it's all intertwined, but we don't know where it's going to land, and all the different states are all over. And that was the first kind of shock. Like, what do we do if our event is in a certain state, but our attendees are coming from all over, versus, again, like the bridal show, we can just manage one step at a time, one state at a time, versus getting through one thing at a time. Because some of these companies in themselves, they have their businesses to run, and then the events are a component of that. So when it comes to the trade shows and events, it really was just a look in the mirror to say what's going on, because we don't know where it's going to land. This is not a domino effect where we're going to see exactly where we all fall and we can just stack them back up. This is, you know, when we land through this, it's going to be different. And so we need to adapt to that. And so that was kind of phase one of recognizing what type of events were we doing, and how do we want to pivot and keep using events, and revisit that in our marketing. And so some of my clients and some people, they actually took events off their table. Like, it's not going to be a part of their marketing for another year, because regardless if events come back, it's too much too soon for them to figure out what they need to do as a business, and then also worry about what can happen with events. Where some of them have pivoted into, look, let's just stick with virtual and or hybrid right now, and let's add webinars or virtual events. And then others, knowing that events are their core, they're just, like I mentioned, they are able to pivot come 2021, but it's just a matter of what type of events and why are they using events, was really the big shock there. And then as far as trade shows, conventions, same thing. It's how else can we get their products and their services out there when live events aren't able to happen. And so being able to get my clients, let's say, an industry thought leader on LinkedIn or on other webinars, because that's really what they're doing at these trade shows and their conferences. And you mentioned some of these conferences are 4 days long, so the trade show may only be 2 days, but how else can they continue to be a thought leader? And what else can we be working on that they're able to do at events? Well, they're building their credibility, they're making stronger relationships, they're showing their product off. And so educating kind of why we're using events, but then being able to use other tactics to do so, and accomplishing the same goals, just maybe not in person. But the first thing is they need to identify how they want to and how realistically they're going to be using events, even in the next 6 months to the next year, so that we can integrate what makes sense for them online and offline.
All right, thanks, Michelle. And next up, Taylor of Schear Media. So Taylor, your agency focuses on influencer social media campaigns, influencer events. I'm sure it's, you know, really hard for your influencers out there right now who, you know, you can't really go out and get new content. How are your influencers, the ones you're working with and the ones that you know, adapting in response to social distancing, stay-at-home measures, finding content, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I had mentioned before, we typically host a lot of events. So a lot of our events, I mean, 95% are influencer driven. So we host about 50 events a year. And a lot of these influencers are using the events to either capture content there or actually getting paid to attend these events, whether it's a brand partner who's sponsoring it or whatever it may be. So now we're seeing a lot of these brands. For example, we have a couple liquor brands who maybe before would have paid to have, you know, a rooftop cocktail party and have influencers attend. They're doing these campaigns where they're asking influencers to do at-home cocktail recipes and become these like virtual mixologists for people to kind of get that taste that they would have of going out and going to these rooftops. So influencers are trying to make it something where it's actually resonating with the current scope versus just simply just throwing content into people's faces just because they can't go out. And that's a big suggestion I've been making to them is just be mindful of what you're posting, why you're posting it versus, you know, just saying, oh, we're having a great party, you know, with this brand, with this tequila company, with this vodka company. It's a little insensitive to the times. Like, let's not have a ton of people in the photos, even if you do have 3 roommates. Like, let's keep it, you know, very on base with everything that's going on. So, you know, let's maybe do it just yourself. If you do have a roommate, have them film you. If not, I'm recommending purchasing these little tripods that basically hold up your phone, you know, as kind of she was mentioning with like the lighting and everything, you know, getting the little light kits and stuff like that to, you know, enhance the quality. You don't want to lose quality ever just because of the situation. So that's been a big recommendation I've been making to them as well. And also doing a lot more in kind right now. So a lot of influencers were very set on their pricing of, oh, I only do posts for $250. I only do posts for $500. It's brands just, they're not making it up. They just don't have that right now. It's just not in their budget. So whether you're doing it for now $100 instead, or you're saying, hey, I'll help you out for free now, put up a post. It's like, in my opinion, I'm telling them, it's like, it's not hurting you. It's not like you're paying a photographer now. So a lot of the reasoning before was, oh, we pay a photographer to take our photos. So you don't have that now. So instead, you know, maybe do some more collaborations, build out your brand book, show kind of what you can do, who you can work with, be sensitive to the situation. But yeah, we're seeing people do at-home content. Like I said, if it's, you know, food and beverage related in their kitchen, at-home recipes, skincare, a lot of people are doing skincare routines. And then something that I've been recommending as well is I've actually been working with an app that's similar to Zoom, that is kind of more of an entertainment where everyone can engage. So finding stuff where you can create video content and interact with your audience. Before it was more just, hey, they're watching what you post, you're putting up this photo, and they're just liking it. Now you have this unique opportunity you've never seen before where people are more engaged than ever. There's more people on social than ever. Engagement rates are at the highest they've been in the last 5 years. So using this opportunity, you know, to actually, whether it's Instagram Live, it's Zoom, it's one of these apps like Fiesta or anything like that that's video based, inviting your followers, you know, actually being able to learn who they are. So that way when the world does open back up and you are allowed to go out and have these partnerships, your audience is engaging more than ever.
All right, thanks, Dara. And next up, Sara. I know one of the primary services of your agency is branding. And what I want to ask you tonight is about personal branding, especially for our brand ambassadors, promo workers, and gig workers that are out there. And I have to start out by saying I've been really impressed with some of the things you've been putting out in terms of, you know, daily business tips, TikTok videos, really trying to engage, you know, with your followers on social media. Tell us a little bit about, you know, what advice you have for our, you know, our viewers tonight to improve their personal brand and their social media presence right now.
Absolutely. So number one is definitely identifying your brand. A lot of people who are any kind of influencer, brand ambassador, anyone who represents anyone, they're thinking like, oh, I just kind of, work, and, sometimes I represent, Belvedere, or sometimes I represent Rebel, and you kind of change your hats, so to say. You still want a general brand for yourself. You know what I mean? So let's say you're more funky and you're tattooed and maybe have your head shaved and that's kind of your thing. You still want that to kind of go through your whole entire brand, if that makes any sense. So for example, like right off the bat, you can tell Taylor is a very networked. She probably goes out a lot when she is allowed out. Like there's certain things you look at people and you can tell different brands. Like Sugey clearly does a lot of different work and different, I'm sure you probably know like a million nonprofits. Like you can just kind of tell that by looking at you. Same thing with Michelle. Like she probably is like a beast at trade shows. She's probably that person that's like running around getting everything together. And like you should be able to look at someone within a couple of minutes, kind of get their brand, but it's very disappointing when someone doesn't know their own brand. So take the time, sit down, get like a notebook and write out a 2-paragraph, very simple, what is my brand? Who am I as a business person, right? You write that down and you read it to yourself every single day till you know it by heart. Till someone says, what kind of what do you do for work? You represent, okay, you're a promoter, but and you're like, yeah, but this is what I do. And you can just recite who you are, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Sara, I would love to piggyback on that and agree. And this is something that we're experiencing, that when you have that strong of a brand, it doesn't matter if we're online or offline, on a stage, on a screen, and that's something that we're really emphasizing as well, because I work with some amazing speakers or presenters. Part of the trade show package that they get is they get a 2-hour workshop or a lunchtime, or something, and they kill it, like on stage, and they're awesome, but then on screen, they're completely different, and that's okay because it's new for them, but their brand should still reflect online, offline, and that's something for sure that we're experiencing. So I wanted to, clap to that comment.
Thank
for
you.
sure.
To actually that point, I used to have an amazing boss when I was younger, and she used to always say when we were about, I was a hairstylist when I was 13. She used to say, okay, you're on. And she meant like, now you're in front of clients. And I loved that phrase, you're on. Like, it's almost like you're on a show, like where you're like an actress, you know what I mean? And I love that because it's the thought process of becoming the person you are in business. And whether you're literally a CEO, janitor, like whoever you are, you should have some kind of persona that helps you in business. It helps separate the two, but it does help you kind of become like that beast mode killer, being able to really crush events, deals, or whatever you're doing. So after you come up with your story and you develop it, next you want to focus on your social media presence, which I'm sure all of you are doing, but you want to be consistent. And you don't want to just post whatever, like Taylor had said earlier, you don't want to just post things just to post them. You want to focus in, figure out what your content is, and you want to make sure to be consistent with it every single day. So if you are a night owl and that's who you are, post at night. If you are the kind of person who, like I'm a vegan, so I post vegan stuff all the time, or some people are health fanatics, but make sure your personal brand has like a nice fluid thing where it kind of all goes together at the end of the day. Another thing that's very important, look at this opportunity of your home, and no one can make you feel bad about not going out, not leaving. No one can make you feel bad about it. So take the opportunity and build your brand now, because when else are you actually going to have 3 months solid to sit home and do it? This is the perfect time to build the brand. So once you get that going and you're consistent and you're starting to see more action, start doing engagement. Start to reach out to the community that you want to engage with. So maybe you're you do promotions and you want to be hired more often. We'll start reaching out to people in the business, different bar owners, different restaurant owners, different DJs. There are great connections. So start reaching out to those people and network with them. And then the last thing that I'll leave you with to build a personal brand, I would say, is definitely like, I feel like brand promoters don't, like, I've never seen it, maybe they do, but like if I was a brand promoter, I would have like little videos of me promoting certain liquors that are like high-end liquors. So like I would have one for Jack Daniels, and it'd be a little video of me talking about Jack Daniels. I would have so much education that if someone's like, hey, can you represent this? I'm like, yeah, I know all about that brand. So I feel like if you want to come into the next, post-apocalypse time with like more jobs, start studying about these different companies you want to represent. So when you get on the floor, you're like, everything about the brands. I mean, I just think that would be so cool if someone's like, oh, do you want to represent us? I'm like, yeah, I have a video on your liquor. Do you want to see it? Like, that's what I would work on if I was right now trying to build my brand up. So that's, yeah.
That's great advice. All right, so next up, we've got a couple of questions for all of our panelists to answer. So I'm going to kind of go in reverse order. First question is, now I know a lot of you have already commented on this to one degree or another, but what advice and guidance would you give to brand ambassadors, to promo workers, and gig workers right now? So Michelle, let's start with you.
Like you said, we definitely hit on quite a bit of this. I would say that engagement and know who it is that you want to represent, just like Sara was just saying. I work with what I call account-based marketing, and without going into a whole marketing tangent here, the main difference is we actually start by knowing what accounts and what companies we want to work with, so that you can highly target, just like Sara was saying. And then you can learn about them and you nurture them very customized. And so we are right now, people are really craving for that human to human connection. And so rather than blasting out content just to put content and attract anybody, like typical attraction marketing and take whichever company away, if you take that initiative and align yourself with what accounts and what companies, then what happens is you're going to start to build that brand, like Sara was mentioning as well. And if you look into account-based marketing, it's kind of flipping that funnel. You're flipping and saying, hey, these are the companies and these are the people. So you start with the companies, and then getting onto LinkedIn and or Facebook. The next step is to find those contacts and find those decision makers and find who you can engage and network with. So again, instead of just throwing spaghetti at the wall, if you're taking that initiative and maybe start with a sector, start with an industry, then identify those companies. A great way, little tip, if you go onto LinkedIn or even Google, you can do Google search of who's looking for jobs. And I'm not saying that you need to apply for that position, but what that's telling us is those companies have a current need right now in events. And so those are the people you can a lot of times see who the hiring manager is, you can see who the sales manager is. So once you identify the account or the company, next step is to engage and network with who it is that the decision makers are. Then start nurturing, piggybacking what Sara said as well, is the content based around those accounts. So if you want to be in tech, or if you want to be in gaming, or you want to be in alcohol and promotion, whatever it is, create your content that way. And then from there, build out and say, you know what, I not only want to represent Jack Daniels, but Bacardi and, a winery, whatever it may be. So starting kind of flipping the funnel that way is going to have a much more initiative approach, rather than just building your content to hope that people are going to then be attracted that way. It's a little more direct of an approach that way.
All right. Thanks, Michelle. And Taylor, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm definitely seeing a couple of ways that are working well. I've been helping a few personal friends who are in the industry, as well as some influencers who are also, more gig promo workers. One thing is, again, like she just touched on, is to narrow down what brands you want to work with. So something that's huge that I've seen, even personally being on the side of the brand as we, represent some of their socials and run some of their social medias, is if we see somebody who has clearly marked, on their Instagram that they are, a promo model in their bio, so we know clearly, and then we get a tag from them. So let's say it is, we've been touching on Bacardi, they posted an Instagram story and tagged Bacardi in it, or tagged, this local whiskey or whatever it may be, and that comes across in our DMs, we see that they tagged it. It's much more of an inclination to go with that person if they then reach out afterwards, because we already know that they are a fan of the product, which, as Sara was touching on, making that video, you can kind of expedite that so it doesn't seem so forced, it makes it seem like a very organic matter, when you're able to see that they actually have been enjoying the product there therefore, you know, are more inclined to speak highly of it, and it doesn't seem so forced. So that's one way. The second way is I personally am not a huge LinkedIn fan for this sort of avenue of work. It's very hard to get in touch with the decision makers. It goes through the funnel. It sometimes gets ignored. Facebook and Facebook groups have been performing really well. You know, there's people that actually have like Facebook groups for people who are looking for jobs in different markets, jobs in different industries. So I would say join at least 5 of those, see what's going on there. And then also, you know, if you are keeping your Facebook more professional, which I recommend, you know, being able to actually connect and friend request with people who are in the industry, is they often just, an easy way for them to do it is to blast out a Facebook post, hey, I'm looking for this, or I need someone to work this, versus them having to go into LinkedIn or go into Indeed and actually put up a job posting and filtering through all the requests. Sometimes Facebook's just an easy avenue for them to get access to people that they already have in their friend network. So those would be a couple recommendations from my end.
All right, thanks, Taylor. How about you, Sarah?
I would say Facebook groups are huge right now. I think that if I was a promoter and I had to go virtual promotion, my first thought would be, you know, that I'm going to be a virtual promoter. I mean, it doesn't mean you're going to get paid the same as you would, obviously, being someone be able to go to events, but I still would be promoting on Facebook groups. I mean, everything from cocktail recipes that you make up yourself. I mean, you could offer that to brands where you and a couple friends. So let's say you have 5,000 friends on Facebook and, you know, 3,000 friends on Instagram. That's still a platform where you could do some promotion. You team up with a couple other people. You can still do promoting. It doesn't mean that that's going to be your full-time job, most likely right now, but you could still keep that promotion going and still keep that, like, that part of your life like still in play where you're still doing it. So I would say everything from foodie groups where people could match cocktails with like different kinds of apps and stuff. And you can make it really fun and kind of cute where, you know, maybe you and your girlfriend or your roommate or whatever made up a cocktail and you call it like the quarantini or something really lame, whatever. But you can kind of make it kind of cute and like do a little recipe and then, you know, talk about the brand and then give a little background. No one's expecting a couple of hot chicks to make a cocktail and then talk about the history of the cocktail. That would be a really surprising video and people would be like, oh, they know how it's made and where they like that. It would be really interesting. And I think that would create a little buzz, and you do that for free a couple times and you get some traction on it. Like, let's say you get a couple thousand views, you could probably sell that to a couple of the different companies, especially the smaller brands who probably are drowning right now. You know what I mean? So I do think that's a nice way to kind of get some money generated, but get some hype behind you as well. I do think that getting a part-time job is something you should definitely think about. I think it's just something that's nice and safe to have. I think that would make no sense not to think about it. At least I think you can be a total, I love doing promotions, I want to do this when it's done, but still get something on the side remote that like a data and something easy so you're not freaking out and you can pay your rent and you're not falling into debt. Because I think more importantly than anything, when you leave this, you don't want to feel like, oh, I sat there and whined and bitched on Facebook the whole time and I ate snacks and looked fat and now I don't have a job. You want to leave and be like, okay, like I kind of had a crappy job, I was kind of bored, but I built my brand, I built my followers. Now I'm kind of an influencer from this all. And, you know, now I'm going right back out and I'm ready to go. So I think that preparing to come back out and looking at it almost like an incubation time is great, but don't ignore the financials. And I would say, think about getting a second stable job. So that's my advice.
All right, thanks, Sarah. And Sugey, your thoughts?
I mean, I'm not really sure that I have many, considering they've really touched on everything. I already mentioned Actors Connection. Definitely the preparedness is a big part of it. Whether it be, I mean, I think most people sort of in the acting side of things and everything else are looking at other jobs or have like had to do unemployment depending on what their situation is, and they're navigating that whole situation. But definitely just Facebook has been helpful, even Instagram to a certain extent. We had the luxury of, so I have a production company called Broken Tile Productions with 2 of my friends. And we have 2 films that we already had done. So we have the advantage of the whole film festival circuit. So that's actually, which all of them have had to transition because obviously they're not happening live right now. But a lot of them are having virtual ones and you're still able to connect, but it's being able to use that social media a lot more effectively. So going on things like, I haven't had a Twitter in forever. Some of those festivals are only on Twitter. So I had to create a new one and start using that again. I updating my Instagram a lot more and connecting and actually making those connections directly with the festival people, and then seeing what other films are out there so that we can communicate with other casting directors, with other actual directors of different films, so that, again, when this is over, you actually can have that connection and you can be able to progress a lot faster. But yeah, all these ladies did a great job. Oh, go ahead.
Do you guys, I think that, I mean, I don't know if I'm right here, but do you feel like TikTok might be a great platform for right now for actresses? Just because, like, you're kind of acting when you're doing TikTok.
Yeah, I've seen that.
I have been influenced to get so many things, and just because of TikTok, because I would much rather see a real person use it and see the effects rather than a commercial or infomercial or something like overproduction wise. And really, I get like when I find something on TikTok that I love from an influencer.
Well, yeah, because I always say that, because when I was making my TikTok video, my mom turns to me and goes, "It's like you're acting." And I'm like, yeah, it kind of is. I'm just doing it really badly into a song that's from Disney. And, you know, but I do think that maybe that might be something kind of cool for them to do, because they could get a lot of followers. The algorithm's super great right now. I mean, you can get millions of views in like 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So
they can do such a combination of, you know, demo videos of, you know, like you mentioned, the cocktail, and then engage. There are so many people just streaming live on TikTok, and then you really get to know kind of the person behind who they are. And that's also figuring out their brand. So if that's something that they're trying to find, who are they, who do they want their fan base to be? There's a lot of engagement on TikTok that you're not getting the same type of engagement. Like on Instagram, it's so perfect, where you have the photographers, or, you know, Facebook, you also have so many different people, or the ads and politics and everything else. For TikTok, people are finding their people.
yeah.
All right. So thank you. All right. So next question. Now, obviously, I know no one here is a mind reader, but from all of your professional experience, what do you see as being the new normal, as they're calling it, for the event industry, both for public and private events? So Sugey, let's start with you.
Well, for the events that I'm more involved in, I'm hoping at some point it will go back to semi-normal. Like I mentioned, we have 2 films that are already done. And the biggest issue is we spent a lot of time and a lot of money putting those together. Releasing them for free on YouTube is not really something we want to do. Putting them even on a streaming platform is not necessarily something we want to do. We will if it looks like it's going to progress to that point. But it takes away, as a new production company, it takes away from what we would want to do, which is obviously be able to engage with people and have some sort of networking that is effective. So what we're looking at, obviously, is within, you know, what does this new normal mean, and what is that going to eventually mean for even smaller events? Will we have to do something like this and integrate technology? At this point, because we're a newer company, we're kind of having to do a little bit more of a wait and see, and just kind of hope that something, a new game plan sort of manifests itself, because it's not exactly an ideal situation for a newer company. But it's just, again, the festivals are helping a little bit, but a lot of them are sort of expecting that they're not going to be able to have what they usually had until 2021 at the earliest, which is probably what you girls are noticing too with some of your events, is that they're completely focusing away from those events. So for right now, we're actually just creating more new content, and then doing a better job of releasing that content on our whatever social media we do have, and creating those connections. But as far as events, that's iffy for my industry anyway, and for where we are.
Okay. And Sara, your thoughts?
I would say that we're going to definitely, I mean, I don't see any large events coming together safely for about a year at least. I work with the Big Dill. It's one of the biggest, well, it is the largest pickle festival thrown in the world. I don't know. But we had like 10,000 people there in Baltimore last year. It was awesome. And this year we were supposed to have 15,000 people. There's no way that's happening now, obviously, you know. We were going to have 3 of them. So we're super excited about it. Like, so things like that are all going to be pushed back about a year, I'd say. I think when we have events, I think you're going to see a lot of extra precautions with sanitation and masks and things like that. I think that for me, if I were to take a drink at any kind of event and someone wasn't wearing a plastic glove, even though I know it's not that much of a difference mentally, I want to see that plastic glove, because that's what it's telling me is they're paying attention to trying to be sterile. You know what I mean? I also know this sounds so strange, but I would love it if someone would get, you know, those like claw things that old ladies have. You know what I'm saying? I would love if someone handed it to me like that. Like, I don't really want to get in your face for you to breathe on me to hand me a drink. I don't know. But that's what I would like love. I also think you'll see a lot of sit down dinner parties that will be spaced out, where like the tables will be more spaced, and maybe people will do more like whiskey tastings. Like we had this whiskey and bacon tasting that was awesome at the South Philly bar called Moonshine. And I think it was small. I mean, there's only like 70 people there, but it was so great because like the whiskey lady was amazing and the food was incredible. And it was just one of those nights that was like a very memorable night. I think that's going to be the kind of event that will take off, because you'll still be able to have that conversation. You'll still be able to learn things and have fun, but just at a spaced out distance. So that's where I see things going for, I would say, a while. And then I think that some outdoor events will be fine, but the same thing, I think you'll be spaced in groups, and we kind of a little bit, you know.
That's what has been happening with drive-ins, obviously, and like they're getting a resurgence. Yeah. And then I've seen in other countries, they're using like the little plastic dividers between tables. Yeah. So that like everybody's kind of, yeah.
I like drive-ins too. I think that's a great thing to bring back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, Taylor, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know about you guys, but down here we're starting to open up. Like I was able to go out for dinner last night, and it's been interesting to see. Like I thought that people were going to be very, very cautious going out, and the restaurants were going to be empty. It's been the complete opposite. There's a 2-hour wait. It's been crazy. People are eager to get back out doing things. So when I think it comes to demand, the demand's going to be higher than ever for events because people have been craving it so much. Something that we've been doing is thinking about how we can adapt, because we want to take advantage that everyone wants to go to events. So something that we're planning is actually a charity concert that's a boat drive down here. So everyone has that drive-in but on their own boats. There's a DJ boat that plays in the middle. There's a food boat that goes around and kind of like tosses you like through a sort of pathway your food. So it's something where you have literally zero contact besides whatever family or roommates or friends that you go on your boat with. But it's an event where you feel other people are participating. You still have that same music aspect where, you know, selling stuff for charity. So we're trying to adapt, and we do think that we're going to be able to actually do a lot of very cool events that we've never seen before, and have brands that are able to be a part of it and influencers who are attending. But I definitely think it's going to be a while until we see almost any other type of event come back, just because people are, I know at least for me, I'm not going to be the one that wants to take the blame for things and be the first one that tries anything. So I think everyone's going to have that same sort of thing. Even when the regulations do drop, no one wants to be the agency. No one wants to be the brand that says, oh, you threw an event with 1,000 people at it and one person had a cough. So I think it's even beyond the legal side and the laws and what they say. I think no business is going to want to be one of the first to do it.
All right. Michelle, your thoughts?
Yeah, so strategically, marketing-wise, definitely more hybrid. And I've been, cheering for this the whole time, because a lot of times events, like I mentioned, the doors open, the doors close, where we're always looking for ways, well, how can we get those connections to happen before the event? So I'm seeing more webinars and your keynote speakers or your presenters actually having those opportunities before the event even happens. So by the time they get to the event, you're kind of warmed up already. So again, I'm coming from a little different perspective from, you know, the type of conferences, and, you know, I'm not a brand ambassador necessarily, but, you know, for those exhibitors, for those sponsors, having those opportunities before the event, I'm going to see that continue. More so before, it was kind of like, okay, our event is this week of the year, and now what I'm seeing and what I love to see is a lot of that promotion, the influencers, maybe in the emails, and having those opportunities to do webinars ahead of time. So that's more strategically. Logistically, I definitely think the food stations and coffee, where, you know, a lot of events are kind of self-served, or stations or utensils, where I think for quite a while it's going to be, even if it might bump up the cost, you're going to have more manpower and, you know, coffee stations, and having the stations kind of be served. That way only one person is serving, rather than everybody down the line getting their food, picking up their pastries, picking up all of those things. So I think just logistically, because sometimes that's in the past, it's been an easier way, cut corners logistically when it comes to cost, because if you can do past hors d'oeuvres versus station hors d'oeuvres, well, you don't need as many people when it's stationary, because it's self-serve. So I think just logistically, to host the events at that size, the staffing itself, because of where they need to be stationed, I think it's going to need to be more educated kind of now, so that people are thinking about those things, you know, how many people are serving, you know, the coffee, or serving the meals, and things of that sort. So that's where the logistical, but really what I'm excited to see is those hybrid approaches, and being able to connect with the audience in various ways, so that the event experience, they're walking into it and after the event as well, which I'm seeing more of already. So I want to see that to stay.
All right, cool. Thanks, Michelle. All right, so to wrap up, let's get some final thoughts from all of our panelists, about 30 seconds or so. Just, you know, tell us what you think about what everything that's been going on. Let's start off with Taylor.
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely think, even, you know, as we're going into phase one of opening, and I think every state's in at least phase one by now, even after all this happens, we're going to still see a lot of changes. So take this time, you know, to work on your social presence, the groups, the networking. And if there's any brand ambassadors, promo models that, you know, need advice how to elevate their social, or how to reach out to brands, that's definitely something we can help with free of charge. So feel free to reach out to myself, and I'm happy to kind of give any guiding way there. But I definitely think now more than ever is the time to really focus on everything, and your own personal brand, as we've been talking about more than ever. But I am going to have to hop off. I have another webinar to go to, but I appreciate everyone. And like I said, anyone can reach out at any point.
All right, thanks, Taylor. Sara, final thoughts.
Well, thanks for having me. First off, this was really fun. Final thoughts would just be, try and stay motivated. I know it's really easy to want to like freak out or get mad, or just like run around and do like whatever. Just try and stay a little motivated in these times when things feel like very pressured and everyone's a little bit anxious. Make a schedule. It's the best advice I got years ago, and it works in this case scenario the best. When everything is going awry, if you have a schedule, you don't have to think too much. So even if it's a simple, you know, morning I do this, afternoon I do this, nighttime I do this, keep a schedule, keep it clean. It really does help kind of keep you focused on building your brand or whatever you're trying to do. Just like Taylor had said, please feel free to reach out to me at any point if you need any help with your resume development, videos, content, updating your sites, whatever you need. Yep, and that's it.
All right, thanks, Sara. Sugey, how about you? Final thoughts.
I would say from just a mental health standpoint, just to really focus on meditating and whatever that means for you, and just being kind to yourself a little bit, because I think in all of our industries, there's just so much unknown still happening. And they kind of alluded to this already. There's, you know, having a schedule, having the things that make you feel as normal as possible are probably going to be the most helpful for you right now. But definitely just even taking a couple moments to just remind yourself to just breathe and not be sucked into some of the negativity, especially like it's really easy as we're trying to update our social media and everything else to get sucked into some of those things and then get into kind of a spiral of the bad mood. Just figuring out a way to kind of center yourself and just remind yourself of what your end goal is.
All right. Thanks, Sugey. And Michelle, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. Well, thank you very much for having myself and everybody on here. I would say fulfillment. That's been very big for me actually through this transition. Is fulfillment can mean, you know, fulfillment of your wallet, but also fulfillment of your mental state and fulfillment of what makes you happy, and finding kind of that harmony. Because right now, if, you know, the wallet fulfillment, you're getting creative. Well, what do you know finds your fulfillment to make you happy and fulfill that? And your mental and learning, but also cutting out the noise. So fulfillment is a balance of all different things. And so if you're finding yourself to be stressed in one area, to come up with that list of how you're going to accomplish that, but also find fulfillment in other areas of your life, whether it be mental, whether it be learning, whether it be socializing virtually and connecting with friends. Because if one area is fulfilling and that is, you know, stressing yourself out, then it's a matter of kind of finding that balance and honing in how you can find that fulfillment in all those areas.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Well, that wraps it up for our industry update number 4. If anyone who is following either through Zoom, on Facebook Live, or is seeing the YouTube video that we'll be putting up later, if you have any questions for any of our panelists, please send them to me through our Polaris Brand Promotions Facebook page. I'll be happy to share them with any of our panelists so you can get in touch with them directly. And I just want to let everyone know that the next industry update number 5 will be on June 3rd at 7 p.m. We have a couple of panelists lined up already, tentative. One of them will be a representative from Health Communications, Inc., otherwise known as the TIPS program, which if anyone follows me knows I'm a huge fan of. Everyone who's serving alcohol should get their TIPS or state regulation. And also a marketing representative from an NFL team. So thank you again to all of our panelists and for everyone who's joined us tonight. Again, this is Al Schuster with Polaris Brand Promotions, and stay safe and take care of each other. Have a great night. Bye-bye.